Militamena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namah. Hare Krishna. Good morning, dear devotees. We are continuing to read the book Japa by His Grace Purijan Prabhu. So we are on chapter 8 starting today. What is important? It's useful in dealing with the mind to try to gain a perspective of what in our life has been of any true value. So much in our life evokes emotion, family, friends, enemies, mistakes, attachments, repulsions, money, the body, our country. From a Krishna conscious perspective, we know that we have lived many lives before accepting this body, and that we are likely to live many more. The experiences, positions, and persons to which we are attached in this life are not that significant. Therefore, in the overall flow of our existence in the material world, if we could turn our present life into a film, mine would run 60 years to date, then speed up the movie so that it took only 1 minute to show our whole life, the good, bad, friends, enemies, and everything else. What would it all mean in that short span of time? We are eternal souls. What does our current spot life, as Srila Prabhupada called it, signify in the face of eternal time? When we were 4 years old, we might have experienced something that felt terrible to us. Now, seeing it from the perspective of a 60-year-old, the event is insignificant. If we even remember it, or perhaps something wonderful happened. We won an award in the 5th grade, completely insignificant now. To protect our false sense of self, the mind imposes a sense of significance on the inconsequential. Whether good or bad events cross the mind, all of them are insignificant from the point of view of eternity. In that sense, material attachments are truly ridiculous. Perhaps a desire to accumulate money. But if I become a billionaire for an eighth of a second, what value would it have? In the 11th chapter of the 3rd canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, Maitreya Muni speaks to Vidura about time. The chapter is called Calculation of Time from the Atom. There, Maitreya gives Vidura a perspective by which to judge reality. He begins with the smallest increment of time, the time it takes an atom, Paramanu, to combine with other Paramanus to form a molecule, and gradually increase the increments of time until he is discussing seconds, minutes, hours, and years. Then human lifetimes, lifetimes of demigods, and finally Brahma's lifetime. Brahma's lifetime is inconceivably long from the human perspective, but Maitreya Muni says the duration of the two parts of Brahma's life, as above mentioned, is calculated to be equal to one nimesha, one eye blink for the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is unchanging and unlimited and is the cause of all causes of the universe. Srimad Bhagavatam 3:11-38. Or in Srila Prabhupada's words, the fantastic and interminable life of Brahma. From the viewpoint of eternity, it is a big brief as a lightning flash. Take that perspective and look at the emotions the mind evokes whenever you think of something you have experienced, positive or negative in this life. Everything we have and have done is completely insignificant. Still, the mind holds each of these things as most important and lures us with them, especially, it seems, when we are chanting Japa. This is one way the mind protects the false ego. If we were to realize our true position as tiny servants of Krishna, we would see our life in a different perspective. Instead, the mind convinces us that all the impressions and thoughts it holds are all important and essential to tend to, especially while we are supposed to be listening to Krishna's names. But we have been tricked, lied to. If we want to chant good japa, we have to become detached enough not to identify with the mind. While the mind may tell us that there is nothing more important in existence than, and here we can each fill in our own blank. We have to know that in the next moment, that same all insignificant event, person, or feeling will be replaced with another all significant event, person, or feeling, complete with its own imperative significance. We love, we want, and we hate endlessly and with no rationale. This is how advertising drives people to buy on impulse. The mind sees some things and becomes attached. At that moment, the object becomes the most important thing in creation, and people will buy it without thought, spending thousands of dollars on some scarcely needed item. Yeah. Later, when the mind has released its grip, that same purchase is revealed as impractical and frivolous. Unfortunately, because we fail to realize that we were victimized by our own mind and senses, we foolish mind worshippers repeat this pattern throughout our lives. Okay, I think I can stop here. This comes into that specific topic of how distraction works. So, Burijan Prabhu is explaining so nicely here about what happens during japa. The core of the distraction really comes because our mind is attached to so many temporary things. That's what Prabhu is explaining here. That we think that everything that happens to us moment to moment to moment, our mind is always engaging us and thinking about those things. And really, if you think about it, all of it is so insignificant. This is very practical. I don't know if you all journal, but if you journal, right, and just if you start writing some of the points, even in a weekly basis, right, if you write about the significant things where your mind is and how those certain things seem so big at that moment, and that same journal entry, after you see 1 year later or something, you look back and you read at the same thing, what you had expanded so much about it, and you felt you were so hurt by this incidents or whatnot, example, right? And now you look back after 1 year, you'll be like, oh my gosh, why was I so engaged? Why was I so emotionally caught up in this problem? Really, it was nothing. At the end of 1 year, look at me, like I'm still okay, right? There was nothing happening. In fact, it was a positive change, whatever happened at that point. So I can also briefly talk about, coming from this corporate world, right? We always have restructure, reorganization, and moving, and this and that, and all of that. So, like, 2 years ago, I was changed. My team was completely changed into a different team. And at that point, I remember how I felt. It was like as if my whole thing was taken away. I was almost to a point where I wanted to submit my resignation letter because I didn't want to change the team. I mean, it felt like a big deal at that point. And now when I look back, it's like nothing was important really, because I equally love the team that I'm in today. So there was nothing like how my mind carried away and felt like that was the end of the world. So exactly like that, Burijan Prabhu is explaining, where you live so many years, and at that point something seemed very significant, but later on you look back and it's like nothing was important anymore. But that moment we don't feel like it, and your mind is completely engaged in that thought process. So those are the things which keep us distracted when we are chanting. So if we can not give so much weightage, I guess, to those things, understanding that all of these shall pass, then we are able to really focus more on chanting the holy names. And that's